In our fast-paced world, we often find ourselves carrying burdens that weigh heavy on our hearts. Whether it's the challenges we face, the trials we endure, or the uncertainty of the future, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. It's like we're juggling so many things at once, and sometimes it can feel like it's all just too much. But what if we told you that there's a way to find peace and clarity, even in the midst of it all? A way that doesn't require us to have everything figured out, but instead asks us to surrender our worries and place them in the hands of something much greater. Today, we're going to explore the powerful practice of prayer. More specifically, we'll dive into what happens when you truly leave it in God's hands. I'm not just talking about offering a quick prayer and moving on. I'm talking about the kind of surrender where you let go of control, where you trust that God has a plan, and where you can rest in the peace that comes from knowing He is in control. Prayer is more than just asking for help. It's an invitation to connect with a loving Father who desires the best for you. It's where we express our deepest fears, our struggles, and our desires. It's where we can lay our burdens down and simply trust. When you truly leave something in God's hands, you're not simply asking for a specific outcome. You're saying, God, I trust you. I trust that you will handle this in your perfect way and in your perfect time. It's hard to do, I know. We all want control over our lives and our circumstances. But letting go and trusting God doesn't mean we're abandoning our responsibility. It means that we're placing our trust in something greater than ourselves. We're choosing to surrender. And in that surrender, we experience a peace that's unlike anything the world can offer. And this peace comes with a deep sense of freedom. Freedom from anxiety, freedom from the burden of worrying about what might happen. When we truly trust God, we open ourselves to His guidance, His wisdom, and His grace. We can rest in the assurance that He is already working behind the scenes, and that whatever happens, it's part of a greater plan. So let's take a moment today to reflect on the power of prayer and the peace that comes with surrender. Maybe there's something you're carrying that feels too heavy. Maybe it's a worry, a fear, or a situation that you've been holding on to tightly. What would it look like to simply let go and leave it in God's hands? Remember, it's not about the outcome, it's about the trust. It's about knowing that you don't have to carry it alone. God's got this. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, today we're going to explore the life-changing power of prayer and the incredible transformations that happen when we let go and trust in God's plan. Now, I know for some of us, the act of praying might feel like just another routine, or even something we do out of habit. But what if I told you that prayer isn't just about asking for things? It's actually about aligning ourselves with God's will and inviting His peace, guidance, and wisdom into our lives. Prayer has the potential to change not just our circumstances, but our hearts and minds. So today, let's break it down together and look at what really happens when you pray and leave it in God's hands. Trust me, the transformation is more profound than you might think. First, let's talk about what prayer really is. Prayer is much more than just speaking words. It's an invitation to God. It's a way to connect with Him, to open up our hearts and share our deepest hopes, fears, and desires. Prayer is a sacred exchange, a time where we surrender ourselves to God's will and place our burdens into His hands. When we pray, we're not simply asking for things or demanding answers. We're acknowledging that God's wisdom, timing, and plan are greater than our own. It's about surrendering control and trusting that He knows what's best for us, even when we don't understand how things will unfold. This act of surrender doesn't mean we stop praying for what we need, but it does mean we give up the pressure of trying to control every detail. Instead, we trust that God is working everything out for our good, even if the answers come in ways we didn't expect. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever prayed for something, but then found yourself still worrying about it? Maybe you prayed for a breakthrough or guidance, but you still couldn't shake that feeling of anxiety or uncertainty? I get it, letting go of control can be incredibly challenging. It feels unnatural to simply release something that means so much to us. But here's the beautiful thing. When we truly trust God and leave it in His hands, we allow ourselves to experience peace, freedom, and a deeper trust in His plan for our lives. When we let go, we are surrendering not just our worries, but also our need for certainty and control. And that's when something extraordinary happens. We open ourselves to God's peace. His peace isn't like the world's peace. It's a peace that surpasses all understanding. It's the kind of peace that lets you rest in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that God is with you and will guide you every step of the way. But here's the thing, trusting God isn't always easy. Sometimes it's one of the hardest things we can do, especially when we can't see the whole picture. But remember, prayer is not just about asking for something. It's about aligning ourselves with God's will. It's about acknowledging that His plan, although it might look different than ours, is always the best plan. So, how do we leave it in God's hands? How do we let go and trust that He's got us? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. The power of prayer. What is prayer really? Prayer is so much more than the words we speak. It's a deeply personal connection with the divine. It's a sacred moment where we pour out our hearts to God, a time when we communicate our deepest hopes, fears, desires, and gratitude. Whether we're on our knees, sitting quietly in a room, or looking up at the sky, prayer transcends the act itself. It is about opening up our entire being to God and inviting Him into every corner of our lives. But here's the thing. Prayer is not about simply presenting a shopping list of wants and needs. It's not about demanding a specific outcome or trying to dictate how things should unfold. It's about submitting our desires, our challenges, and our worries to God with the deep trust that He knows what is truly best for us. Think about it. Every time you pray, you're not just asking for help or guidance, you're also acknowledging something fundamental. You're acknowledging God's sovereignty. You're saying, God, I trust you. I trust that you know more than I do. I trust that your plan is bigger, wiser, and more perfect than anything I can imagine. Whether you're asking for guidance, healing, strength, or peace, prayer is an act of faith that invites God's presence into our lives. It's a way of saying, I can't do this alone, God. I need you. And in that surrender, there is strength. You see, when we pray, we're not just asking for solutions to our problems. We're not simply looking for answers. Prayer is an act of alignment. It's about aligning ourselves with God's will. It's about acknowledging that He knows what's best for us and trusting that His timing and methods are perfect, even if they don't always make sense in the moment. When you take that moment to pray, you're not just requesting things, you're opening yourself up to transformation. You're saying, God, I surrender my understanding of how this should go. I trust that you will guide me in the right direction. And the true power of prayer lies not just in the asking, but in what happens after we've spoken those words. That's where the magic happens, when we release control and trust in God's plan. It's in those quiet moments of waiting, those moments of deep faith, that God begins to work in ways we may not yet fully understand. Think of prayer as a bridge, a connection between our hearts and God's heart. It's through prayer that we invite His peace into our lives. It's through prayer that we find strength to keep going, hope to endure, and wisdom to make decisions. Prayer aligns us with His purposes, opening our hearts to receive guidance and grace in ways that transcend our own understanding. In those moments of silence after the prayer, we can begin to hear God's voice. It's in those quiet pauses that we start to feel the stirring of peace, the whispers of direction, or the comfort of knowing He's got us. Prayer doesn't always give us immediate answers, but it does transform us. It changes us from the inside out, giving us a perspective that sees beyond the challenges and trusts in the bigger picture. So friends, when you pray, remember it's not about telling God what to do, but about surrendering to His will. Prayer is a beautiful act of faith, trust, and alignment. It's in those sacred moments that we allow God to work in our lives, to transform our hearts, and to guide our steps. And here's the secret. What happens after we pray is where the magic truly unfolds. That's when we begin to see God's work in us and through us. It's when we start to experience His peace, guidance, and the transformation that only prayer can bring. Letting go, the art of surrendering your worries. The second step in this transformative process is letting go. Once we pray and lay our requests before God, the next challenge comes, releasing control and stopping ourselves from obsessing over the outcome. And if we're honest, this can often be the hardest part. How many of us have prayed earnestly for something, but then find ourselves continually circling back to that worry, wondering, what if things don't turn out the way I expect? What if I don't get exactly what I asked for? It's natural to feel that way. We're human. But here's where the breakthrough comes. The key is to trust. Trust that God's plan is always better than ours. His timing might not always align with ours, and his answers may not look like what we imagined. But when we trust him, we are releasing ourselves from the grip of anxiety, fear, and doubt. Imagine this for a moment. When you let go of control, you are surrendering that heavy weight of worry. You're letting go of the what-ifs that keep you up at night. You're choosing peace over anxiety, trust over fear. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You open up to God's peace in a way you've never experienced before. Now, I get it. Letting go is not easy. In fact, it can feel like one of the toughest things to do. Our minds race, our hearts hesitate, and the desire to control often overwhelms us. We've all been there, right? The fear of uncertainty can grip us tightly. But here's the truth. When we choose to trust God fully, when we decide to release our need for control, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel lighter. It's as if the weight of the world has been lifted off your shoulders, and in its place is a deep, unshakable peace. You realize that God is in control, that he has you in the palm of his hand, and he will never leave you or forsake you. And that realization allows you to rest, knowing that he will work things out for your good. Letting go means trusting in God's infinite wisdom. It means realizing that his ways are higher than our ways, his thoughts deeper than ours. There's freedom in surrendering to the reality that God sees the full picture, while we only see a small part of it. What feels like loss to us might actually be gain in God's economy. What looks like a setback may be the exact thing we need to take the next step in his perfect plan. So friends, if you're struggling with letting go today, take comfort in knowing that you're not alone. It's a process, sometimes slow, sometimes difficult, but every moment you choose to surrender, you are stepping into a deeper trust and peace. God doesn't want you to carry that burden. He wants to lift it off your shoulders, and he will, if you allow him to. It's not about abandoning hope or giving up on your dreams. It's about trusting that God will bring those dreams to life in his perfect time and in his perfect way. It's about surrendering control, not because you've lost hope, but because you've found a greater peace in knowing that he's got this. And trust me, he does. What happens when you let go? Stories of transformation. When you truly leave your prayers in God's hands, it's as if you've opened a door to a new world of possibilities, one where peace, clarity, and unexpected blessings await. It's a transformative shift. But what exactly happens when we surrender our concerns and fully trust God with our burdens? Let's dive into some of the powerful changes that occur when we let go. 1. Peace in the midst of chaos. First, you will experience a sense of peace that transcends the chaos around you. Life doesn't suddenly stop being challenging when you pray and surrender to God's will, but you gain a new kind of peace. It's the kind of peace that doesn't make sense to others, the calm that floods your soul, even when the storm is still raging. When you trust that God is in control, you no longer feel the need to control every little detail of your life. The weight of anxiety begins to lift. Instead of feeling like you're constantly treading water, you start to feel the assurance that you are held. God is in control, and that gives you peace that passes all understanding. 2. Increased faith and patience. Another profound shift that comes from leaving it in God's hands is the strengthening of your faith. As you let go of your own timelines and expectations, you begin to see how God's timing is always perfect, even if it doesn't match what you thought it should be. The more you trust him, the deeper your faith becomes. But there's another crucial lesson here: patience. Trusting in God means learning to wait, sometimes for what feels like an eternity. But in that waiting, your trust grows. You learn that his timing isn't just perfect, it's also intentional. He's working on things in your life that you can't see, orchestrating your path in ways you never imagined. 3. Unexpected blessings. When we leave it in God's hands, we often find that he answers our prayers in ways that we never expected, sometimes better than we imagined. The things we pray for might look different than what we thought we needed. God's answers may not always come in the form we anticipate, but trust that they will be exactly what we need. Sometimes, the blessing is not what we asked for, but what God knows will bring us closer to Him and help us grow into the person He created us to be. The unexpected blessings can come in many forms: a new job, restored relationships, or even a newfound sense of purpose. 4. Growth in character. Prayer and surrender aren't just about receiving answers. They're about transforming us from the inside out. When we truly surrender to God, we experience growth in ways we never imagined. It's in letting go that we develop patience, humility, and compassion. The more we trust God, the more we start to mirror His character. We begin to see the world differently, with more grace, more understanding, and more love. This growth in character doesn't just impact our relationship with God, it impacts how we treat others, how we handle challenges, and how we live out our faith in everyday life. Let me share a couple of real-life stories that show just how powerful this practice of letting go can be. These stories come from people just like you, who have experienced firsthand the incredible transformations that happen when they truly surrender their worries to God. Testimonial 1. I was facing a huge career change and had no idea which direction to take. I prayed about it for days, asking God to show me the way. But as time went on, I realized I was still holding on to control. I was trying to figure it out on my own, forcing things to happen. Finally, I reached a point where I had no choice but to let go and trust God completely. And that's when everything shifted. The moment I stopped trying to force things and truly trusted God, peace flooded my heart. I stopped worrying about the outcome and just leaned into His peace. Within weeks, an opportunity that I had never expected opened up, and it was the perfect fit. It wasn't the path I thought I wanted, but it was exactly what I needed. Looking back, I see how God was guiding me the whole time, even when I couldn't see it. Testimonial 2. Prayer has always been a part of my life, but there was a time when I struggled with my health. I prayed for healing, but at the same time I was filled with doubt. I wasn't sure if God was listening to me. I remember constantly feeling frustrated because I wasn't seeing the answers I wanted. It wasn't until I truly surrendered my fear and trust to Him that I felt a profound shift. When I finally let go of my need to control the situation, I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I realized that God's peace truly does surpass all understanding. Not only did my physical health improve, but my mental and emotional state transformed as well. I gained a new perspective on life and found a deeper trust in God's timing and plan. I can honestly say that my journey of faith has never been the same. These stories show us that when we choose to surrender and trust God with our deepest concerns, we open ourselves to a transformation we couldn't have imagined on our own. Letting go isn't just about releasing control. It's about experiencing peace, strengthening our faith, receiving unexpected blessings, and growing in our character. So if you're struggling to let go today, I encourage you to trust in God's plan. His ways are higher than ours, and His answers are always exactly what we need. When you let go, you make room for Him to work in ways you've never experienced before. How to leave it in God's hands. Practical tips. Now that we've discussed the power of prayer and surrender, let's get into some very practical steps you can take to truly leave your burdens in God's hands. It's one thing to talk about trust and faith, but how do we actually put it into practice? Let me share some actionable tips with you that can help you make this a part of your daily walk with God. 1. Pray with faith. The first step is to pray with unwavering faith. And when I say faith, I mean that deep, confident belief that God is listening to you. Sometimes we pray, but we doubt whether God will answer or if He even hears us. But prayer is not just a ritual, it's a heartfelt conversation with the Creator of the universe. When you pray, remember that God is not distant or distracted. He hears every word, every cry, and every longing of your heart. And when you pray, trust that He will respond in the best way at the right time. You may not always understand the answer right away, but having faith means knowing that He is always working things out for your good. So when you pray, don't just speak the words, believe them. Believe that your prayer is powerful. Believe that God is faithful, and believe that He will answer in His perfect way. 2. Release control. The next step is something that many of us struggle with: releasing control. After we pray, we often try to take matters into our own hands. We start making plans or worrying about how things will unfold. We get caught up in the how and when of everything. But leaving it in God's hands means surrendering the need to control the outcome. It's about trusting that God knows what's best for you, even if it's not exactly what you expected or what you hoped for. When you let go of control, you stop holding on to the anxiety that comes from trying to make everything work on your own. Instead, you place everything in God's hands and allow Him to move in His time, His way. Number 3, wait with patience. Waiting is perhaps the hardest part of leaving it in God's hands. We live in a world of instant gratification. We want answers right now, but God's timing doesn't always match our expectations. This is where patience comes in. When you pray and when you surrender your request to God, be prepared to wait. It might not happen immediately, and it might not look the way you thought it would. But waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means trusting, resting in His promises, and knowing that His timing is always perfect. During this waiting period, remember that God is still at work, even when you can't see it. Trust that He's moving behind the scenes, preparing the right path for you. And as you wait, your faith grows stronger, and your trust in His plan deepens. 4. Reflect on His faithfulness. The final tip is to reflect on God's faithfulness. Take time to remember the ways He has shown up for you in the past. Look back on the times He has answered prayers, the moments He has carried you through difficult situations, and the blessings that have come when you least expected them. When you're feeling uncertain or discouraged, recalling those moments can help strengthen your faith. It reminds you that God has never failed you, and He won't start now. He's been faithful before, and He will continue to be faithful. Make it a habit to reflect on these moments of faithfulness. It could be in your prayer time, in a journal, or even just in a quiet moment of gratitude. This practice will help keep your heart aligned with God's goodness, reminding you that He is trustworthy and He is always working for your good. So friends, these are practical ways you can leave your worries, hopes, and dreams in God's hands. Pray with faith, release control, wait with patience, and reflect on His faithfulness. These steps will help you not only surrender your burdens, but also experience the peace, joy, and freedom that come from trusting Him fully. Remember, prayer isn't just about what we ask for. It's about deepening our relationship with a God who loves us and cares for us more than we can imagine. When you leave it in His hands, you're saying, "I trust you, God, with everything I am." As we wrap up today's discussion, I want you to take a moment and really reflect on what we've talked about. Remember, when you pray and leave it in God's hands, it's not just about asking for things. It's about something far deeper. It's about building a personal relationship with a loving Father who sees you, knows you, and has your best interests at heart. You are not alone in this journey. When you surrender your worries and your plans to God, you're opening yourself to a peace that surpasses understanding. It's a peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. It's the peace of knowing that God is bigger than any problem, bigger than any fear, bigger than any doubt you may have. This peace, this trust, it takes time and practice. But as you continue to pray and leave it in God's hands, you'll begin to see His wisdom, His love, and His presence at work in your life. You might not always see the answers immediately, but trust that He is working behind the scenes, weaving everything together in ways that you might not even understand right now. And that's okay. If you're struggling right now, if you're wondering whether God is hearing your prayers, I want you to know He is. He sees you. And the very act of praying, of surrendering, is already moving you closer to His will for your life. So don't lose heart. Stay in faith. Keep trusting. If you found this video encouraging, if it's reminded you to trust and surrender more fully to God, I'd love for you to let us know in the comments. What's on your heart today? What prayer are you leaving in God's hands? I would be honored to pray with you. And I know many others in this community would love to pray for you as well. If you feel like someone you know might benefit from this message, don't hesitate to share it. You never know who might need to hear exactly what was shared today. And if you haven't yet, Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss future content that can continue to inspire, uplift, and remind you of the power of prayer and trust. We are a community here, and we're on this journey together. Remember, no matter where you are in life, no matter how heavy your heart might feel, when you pray and leave it in God's hands, He will take care of you. He will guide you, and He will provide. Trust Him, keep praying, and never forget, He's got you. Thank you so much for watching today. Stay blessed, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next video.